Hi, everyone. Welcome to our special live stream of our session to help as many people as possible in this insane time in the world where USAID and a lot of other development actors are being decimated cruelly on purpose. So this is Breathe, Plan, Act, Breathe, Repeat, navigating your impact career amidst deliberate sector destruction. I wish we were having the opposite discussion, navigating your career amid abundance and opportunity, because we should be investing more resources and money and energy into addressing the world's challenges, not making them worse. But unfortunately, we're not in that situation. We have three other amazing impact professionals today: Julia Firestone, Caroline Warwick, and Spencer Campbell. And we're going to be streaming on live on LinkedIn and YouTube for about an hour, possibly a little bit longer. It is an insanely difficult time in the sector, and we all have our respective experience, and we've done things together collectively. And I think, as we put in the notes, there are no easy answers. So the idea is we do hope people watching this, whether it's now or in the future, will get some new resources, some ideas how to pivot, upskilling, but it is brutal, and we acknowledge that. And anyone who tells you otherwise, it's easy and you can just transition. I mean, I don't believe them, in my opinion. So throughout the session on LinkedIn, particularly, or YouTube, in the comments, please let us know if you feel comfortable, where you're watching from, a couple of words about your background, and bring in questions, suggestions, and tips, and we'll try to weave them into the conversation. After this is over, the video should stay up on YouTube and LinkedIn, and we'll probably put it some other places. And we'll be talking about lots of resources. So some of those will go into the notes, but then where this in YouTube, and also, if we put on PCDN or respective channels, we'll have distilled the resources. So we're going to do quick intros of kind of who we are and why we're doing this. So let's start off with Julia.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Craig. Thanks so much for including me in this conversation today. I'm Julia Firestone. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. My pronouns are she, her. My background is in global education, as well as corporate social impact. And I am now a leadership and career coach for folks in social impact fields. I also do a lot of social impact consulting. I was also told, Craig, that we should mention our favorite ice cream. Is that still in the cards? I'll go topical and say Stephen Colbert's Americone Dream.
Very good. Spencer?
Yeah, hey guys, Spencer Campbell here. I work with social impact job seekers at my talent agency, the Spencer Campbell Talent Agency. It's a tough time out there for folks looking for work with impact. Before I did this, I was a recruiter and a director of recruiting, vice president for talent acquisition, and I spent my whole career working for nonprofits and social impact organizations. I am looking forward to this talk today. Hopefully we can find a way forward together. And my favorite ice cream flavor is cookie dough because it's the best. Thanks.
Okay. Caroline?
Hi there, I'm Caroline Auerkirk. I'm calling in from about an hour west of Philadelphia, and my pronouns are she, her. My favorite flavor of ice cream, that's the easiest question I think we're going to get tonight, because it's a no-brainer, which is mint chocolate chip, or bust, but it needs to be green. I am a leadership and career coach for folks in the social impact space. I do one-on-one coaching. I do group programs, including a social impact career sprint program that is the doors are closing this weekend. But I also get the privilege of working with amazing collaborators all over the world who are working to help support social impact professionals. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to be here with Craig and Julia and Spencer today, because it's just been it's been such a difficult time, and I just want to share my my deep empathy with all the folks who are listening to this call, because it's just a really tricky time, and it's not just you, and we're here to really identify ways to support the work that you're doing and help you find what's next for you in your career.
Thank you. We could have a whole session just talking about ice cream. So I'm Craig Zelzer, based in Medellin, Colombia. Been working in the impact sector for 30 years in many different roles. So about 15 in international peacebuilding development, 10 years as a professor, and about 10 years now doing PCDN, and do a lot of work on the future of impact careers, AI for impact, career coaching, and lots of other things. And really delighted. We're all part of a network also that Caroline helps coordinate, connected to Nick Martin on impact career coaching. We all do our individual things, but we'll put the link in for that. And if you do not follow Nick, that's one key. I mean, please follow all of us. There's lots of other people who are doing amazing stuff around the world to help job seekers, but also Nick Martin. And he also has a great free course. I think it's free on LinkedIn Learning, just how to leverage LinkedIn for impact. So again, as we go throughout this, please let us know your questions, your comments, your frustrations, whatever you feel sharing. And you could also critique. And so just to start off with, let's do this one and we're going to try to have no more than 2 of us answer each question, just to get to as much as possible. So where do you see the career opportunities growing amidst this dramatic period of destruction? So who would like to jump in first on that?
Yeah, I can talk about this for a second. So, I am having clients sign offers. Folks are still hiring. It might feel like social impact is dead. It is not, right? Like there is still work to be had. And in any crisis, there are winners and losers. There are a lot more losers in this one. I think the world is demonstrably worse off because of everything that's happened. But one thing that I have seen recently is folks who are those fundraisers and partnership builders. Those folks are doing well. They're a hot commodity. If you know how to raise funds, build partnerships, put programs together, we're seeing those folks. There's appetite to hire people like this, and they're signing offers. Also helped someone recently sign something at a fairly large health-focused nonprofit funded by private philanthropy, not really impacted by what's going on at USAID. So if you are despairing, there's no social impact jobs left out there. It's not true. The sector does continue, and if you want work that makes an impact, don't give up the fight. Thanks.
Who'd like to jump in next?
Julia, I think you mentioned that you had some good thoughts here.
I'm sure you do too, Caroline. Craig, can we break your rule already? We
There's
won't go too
no
long.
rules. It's okay.
But I echo what you've said, Spencer. And I would also add, I think, some specific spaces that are interesting to keep an eye on. And I'll particularly echo our friend Wayan Vota on this, is we're seeing a lot of states step up, if you're in the US context, and say, hey, state government is a really good place to look. And we really actively want to support federal employees who have lost their jobs. So Hawaii, Virginia, Maryland, New York, possibly more since early this week, have stepped up and said, please come look for opportunities in our state. You are welcome here. We value your experience. I will also say, I think political campaigns are a really powerful way to leverage your experience in social impact for changing things for the better. If that's something you've not been involved in, there's a lot of transferable experience in terms of communication skills. If you've been in that work, policy work, I would really encourage you to look out for different campaigns, especially if you're willing to move to a different place. As Spencer said, philanthropy, we're still seeing a lot there. I do think there's a lot of competition in the philanthropy space for those roles. They're quite stable. They're usually well paying. So that can be challenging, but also looking at family philanthropy is another path. And what I am seeing with my clients is, we're having this shift towards folks in the impact space wanting those really good salaries, really good benefits, moving away from small nonprofits that maybe couldn't pay quite as well. And what I'm seeing is trends toward, in a tight job market, sometimes those lower paid nonprofit jobs are a little bit less competitive and still just as needed. And so if you're someone who has the capacity, who can work for a little bit lower salary, then that can be a really great opportunity to follow as well.
Yeah. Julia, I think you wrote a post about this maybe on LinkedIn today, as a matter of fact. So if you haven't seen Julia's post, I would definitely recommend checking that out, because I thought you had some really great suggestions here. I think that, the two biggest conversations that I've been having over and over again with clients are around jobs, and jobs that pay for themselves, basically. So spaces where you're able to really where your salary is basically covered by the work that you're doing. In other words, something like development, where you could fundraise part of your salary, or other things where your business development and fundraising, two separate entities. But both of those are very much still needed, especially if you have the opportunity to show skills in fundraising outside of government contracts and the government procurement kind of system. So if you've done private business development, or at the state level, which is still somewhat functioning, those are rapidly growing. And then the other thing that I always I think it can be helpful to talk about is around entrepreneurship, and sort of what is that wild idea that you've been thinking about for a long time, and what would it take to get it started? And that's something that I think in my past life, I used to teach classes on social entrepreneurship, and I think the biggest takeaway there is if you have the idea for anything, right? Even if it's a problem that you'd like to solve, there's so much that can generate from that, and that can be a really cool direction to explore as you're thinking about what's next for you. So that, I think, is a direction to consider as well.
Okay, thank you so much. We have about 75 people from around the world on LinkedIn, and so please, what you feel comfortable, let us know your questions, comments, resources. So the next question is, should people just focus on the good or decent enough job and forget about purpose? So I'll start off on this one. And so 3 thoughts, and to acknowledge like this intentionally cruel destruction with no notice. Obviously, if you read Project 2025, there was some notice, but that most of us working in the impact sector are doing this. I mean, we all need to make a living, but we're also deeply committed to not building widgets, but helping to address the challenges in the world. So it's not only just like the loss of a job, there's identity, and just realizing there's a lot of other aspects of this beyond just financial insecurity. And so 3 thoughts. First is, number one, if you have savings or a partner or family resources and have some breathing room, then you can do a little bit longer time. But one is like, just make a financial plan. So do you have 6 months savings, no month savings? What are your expenses? And that will affect how much can you put purpose or a purpose type of job at the forefront versus a okay job versus like, I just need anything that pays bills, and particularly in the US also provides health insurance. And I think I have a friend who won't go into the sector, but moved to DC, has a lot of experience, lost the job within 2 weeks because of the challenges. And they'll get another job, but they're like, I'm just sick of looking for purpose. I just need to make money. So decide for yourself, and don't worry about, in my opinion, don't worry about value judgments. Purpose, I would prefer not to work for an oil or tobacco or arms company, but decide your boundaries. And the second thing is that purpose and impact can be in all areas. And so I even before this crisis, I didn't differentiate between for-profit, nonprofit, foundations, public sector, because there's good and bad in all aspects. So to me, it's really thinking about how do your skills align with available opportunities? How can you re-message or upskill a little bit? And if you've always been working in international development, there's lots of great opportunities in private sector. So a lot of people in the impact sector, and I think this has changed, to narrowly focus their job search, both on roles and types of employers. So who'd like to jump in next on this?
I just want to, so Craig, I think you have some really great ideas there. I did a workshop on this, because that's available on my website for free. It was a webinar I did with the University of Chicago, and it was called "Make Any Job a Social Impact Job." And it was really talking about this idea of how can we infuse purpose no matter what. I am of the opinion that every job should be a social impact job. And so in that workshop, I offered some some different techniques to infuse purpose and impact into every job, regardless of what your actual job title is called. And there's a whole bunch of resources in the workbook that's available for that. This is all for free on my site. If I could figure out how to access the comments, Craig, I would drop the link, but I can't seem to figure that out. But
just send it to me and I'll post it.
All right, I'll do that right now. But one of the things that I talk about there is sort of all the different, I mean, this could look like anything from, okay, you are a meeting planner or an executive assistant who's working on scheduling things in conference rooms all day long. Could you start infusing a bit of, could you start choosing to cater only from small local businesses and not from large chains, right? Could you start to make sure that there's recycling cans in every single conference room, right? How can you, it's at the tiniest level, which can still make a huge impact. And that, and that can have a really dynamic impact. I mean, imagine what that would look like if we all ordered catering from, the local restaurant as opposed to Chipotle or whatever, right? That has a compound effect. So I'm going to drop that link to Craig and we'll send it out, but there's some other resources in there as well.
Anyone else want to jump in on the decent enough or good enough job?
Yeah, I'll just quickly plug this. I had a conversation with Simone Stolzoff earlier this year, who wrote a fantastic book called The Good Enough Job, talking about finding multiple sources of identity in your life. I think Simone has a lot of really interesting things to say about what we should expect from work. And it's not necessarily the message to give up on looking for social impact, but just that there is things that you can do to put work in its proper place. And if you are feeling like, oh, maybe you had a relationship with work that you wanted to reevaluate, now might be a good time to do it as you're looking for what your next job can do. Anyway, I highly recommend his book, The Good Enough Job.
Okay, I put that in the LinkedIn chat, and again, go to the show notes. And Caroline, I'll put that in a LinkedIn chat. So next question, if someone's money is just running out, because again, this was not forecast, or some people could foresee it. So it's not like, oh, there's 6 months down the road or 9 months, there's going to be cuts. This is, devastation. What are your recommendations? And also keeping in mind our audience is not just for the US, we have a lot of people, probably in the global majority. Who'd like to go first?
Yeah, I'll take this. There is no shame in being on the job hunt that you're on, right? Putting food on your family's table is a profound and powerful social impact. There is, and if that is the job hunt that you're on, be on that job hunt. Get on apps like Uber or the equivalent, DoorDash, teach English online, hustle for contracts or work from friends and family. Call in the favors that you need to call in. If you are in a dire situation, recognize that, acknowledge that, and ask for help from the people in your life who have helped you in the past. There's no shame in it. What's happening to you is not your fault. What's happening to you is it's not commentary on your character. It's not commentary on your skills. Doesn't mean anything, right? All the worst people I know on planet Earth are billionaires. All the best people I know make very little money. If anything, there's an inverse correlation between, the amount of money that you have in your bank account and the quality of your character. So if there is no money there and you need to get back to work under any terms, hustle for that. Now, that is a very difficult kind of job hunt. Many of us, just like deep in our psyche, we have this instinct to be on that kind of job hunt when we in fact have more time, we have more runway. So if you do in fact have 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, be on that job search. Take your time, do this more patiently. You don't actually need to go and start driving a van to pay your bills. You can have a more patient job hunt and approach it with that viewpoint. And I encourage you to do so if you have those resources. likely because that's going to be more in line with a higher social impact and a more satisfying job. But the first thing I would say for anyone to do is to do this calculation, like Craig said. What are the resources at your disposal? Entrepreneurs talk about their runway. How long can the business go before we run out of money? How much, what's coming in today, what's going out? You got to have your numbers. You need to know your runway, and that'll inform what kind of search you're on. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, I want to echo part of what you said, Spencer, there around shame. I think shame and pride can be massive barriers in our job searches. And I know have even gotten in the way for me. When I was first starting my business, I worked part-time in a wine shop, which I shared in that post you mentioned, Caroline. And I didn't mention it to people for a while because retail didn't align with my past corporate job where I felt a lot of pride about the work I had been doing. But the truth is that it sustained me while I was also building my business. And I actually loved it. And that was because I got to know my neighbor who ran this shop, who needed extra help. And so I would say if you live in a place where you can hit the pavement and go talk to people, if you are in a truly a dire situation, yes, all the apps, there's also lots of freelance websites online. But, there are also restaurant jobs. There are lots of different industries in terms of retail that you can take the job for now and sustain yourself, because there's no way you're going to make an impact if you are in a state of desperation anyway. And I would just say, actually, let's contribute towards destigmatizing these industries, that we tend not to treat as professional. And I think it can fall into very kind of elitist traps. And so I would say, do what you need to do. I agree with you, Spencer. And as you're doing that, be conscious of building relationships. Whatever work you take on, can you connect with your local community? Can you contribute to community initiatives that support social good, while managing a restaurant or, working in that retail job? So I'm with you there.
Thank you. And again, we're going up in numbers watching, so getting close to 100. And people might be shy, but feel free to put comments, questions, or if you prefer not to have your name attached, if you're connected to me on LinkedIn, message me on LinkedIn, because you may not want to share stuff, but please, we'd love to help and just get your insights and your tips. So the next question, and Caroline will start off with, is what are the best resources for people trying to pivot sectors?
Yeah. Okay. So my response to this is a little controversial, which is the best resource is you, right? I want you to start with you first. And then I've got a zillion resources. Resources are my love language. So I can share those in a second. But what I want to say about the first thing is, it is very tempting to fall into the trap of the spaghetti method when everything is falling apart, right? And I want to acknowledge, like I said at the top, right? It is a really stressful time, so I don't want to undermine that. But I would like to offer that the sort of panic, stress applying for jobs, the spaghetti method of trying to throw things at the wall to see what sticks, it is counterintuitive, but it will end up taking you a lot longer to get anywhere because you're throwing things at the wall. And I say this as a person who applied to 89 jobs after I graduated from graduate school in 2010. I had these 2 fancy degrees. I was like, I can do anything. And then I was flailing. And when I finally got a call back for a job interview, 89 jobs later, I had to call that job back because I had applied to so many roles at that organization. I didn't know what job I was being invited to interview for. So I was like, and then, it just kind of escalated from there. So that is just a trap, right? Throwing a million things at the wall to see what sticks, because it ends up undermining your own confidence about what you want and what you and the sort of things that you can do and feel good about. So going slow to go fast, I think, is ultimately the solution here, of taking a moment to and a moment can be an hour-long brainstorm to just get your wherewithal. I've got some resources again on my website, because this is something I'm really passionate about, because I wish someone had taken me when I was applying to 89 jobs and said, Caroline, don't do that. This is where a career coach can be really helpful. So each of us has our own practice. We also have impactcoach.com, which is a platform making it easy to connect people with coaches who can support this exact kind of job search. So that's the sort of first thing. It's just figure out what it is that you're actually looking for, right? And then also getting, in terms of actual resources to pivot, right? This is where understanding how your skills translate to a different sector. Spencer, you wrote a really great post about this, about transferable skills, which I also wanted to I mean, I read all of yours, all three of you all the time, right? This is what, right. But I think that there's this piece of making sure that you're getting out of your own way. Because in the social impact space, we spend so much time speaking in jargon, and it's like, what are you even talking about? I don't even know. I curate job postings for Nick Martin, who Craig mentioned at the beginning. And sometimes I read these job postings in the social impact space, and I'm just like, I don't understand a single word in this. And I have been reading hundreds of job postings for the last 5 years, and some of it, the jargon is just unbelievable. So I think taking a moment to really get clear on what are the actual skills that you're bringing to the table, and how do those actual skills contribute to the what the organization is trying to do, right? So it's not particularly helpful to say, I run programs, right? What are those programs doing for the organization? Why is the organization having programs in the first place, right? Who are they serving? What are the outcomes that they're trying to go for? I think will help you get a little bit more of a grip around what you're doing, which can then really make it a lot easier for you to share your work. I'm very passionate about this. I think. Yeah.
So I see a rock song there, 89 jobs, like what is it? The red balloons, 99 red balloons. So I think that maybe our next session, we could do a song about it and all the insanity of our respective job searches I've had, and the many people we've worked with. But I would just add 3 things. So one is acknowledge the brutality of the market, and that, a lot of people are not going to find the job in their current sector. So just like acknowledge that. I wish that was not the case. So it's really thinking about how your skills, experience, aptitudes, knowledge can transfer, and it's your job to do that. If you submit, and part of it's jargon, part of it's metrics, part of it's narrative. But if I submit a job for a sales manager, and let's say I have all the skills, but I use development speak, no one's going to hire me. So make sure, and sometimes it's just tweaking. It's not about upskilling. It's just like, what are they looking for? So I was working with a client who works for a US government agency, and pretty senior, and part of it is just getting rid of all the agency speak and just saying, like, what did you, because like there was so much jargon there, I didn't even know half of it. So I think that's really important. The second thing is, if you're going to upskill or get more knowledge, there are lots of great programs, climate-based, Terra do, in Climate Asia. I mean, I do stuff, we all do things. There's MOOCs, there's Humanitarian Leadership Academy, Acumen Academy. Before you invest time or resources, I mean, if you're just like, I'm curious, I want to just learn something, then do it. But if it takes a lot of time and resources, make sure you understand that particular aspect of the market. And is it going to lead to new networks, new relationships, new skills, or just knowledge? Because knowledge may not lead to the job. And some programs are free, some charge insane amount of money. So just like, don't just be like, I've got to upskill. Like, do some thought about it. And I'm doing a lot with AI now. I teach on it, but there's a great place called Blue Dot. I'm facilitating just one section of a course on AI safety. All their courses are free. They ask for donations, and they're really high quality and demanding. So like, you can go out and spend $20,000 to learn how to do AI. You could do it yourself. You could use AI to learn AI. But so it's like, map out, whether it's grad school, certificate, fellowship. Don't just spend, again, if it's like a LinkedIn learning, do it. But if it takes time and money, just, if you're not just doing it out of curiosity, and then don't do it alone. And Wei-Yin talks about this. There's never search alone. We all talk about it. So whether it's PCDN or one of our things, or go back to, if you went to a university and they have a career center and they're not offering you free support, demand it. Every university in the world that has decent career services should be providing this now. So like,
it may be in a different department for alumni. So I do a lot of partnerships with the University of Chicago's alumni office, and that's a different department. So search around for it, and don't assume that the people who work at the university will know where it is, because as a former university staff member, it's all over the place, but that definitely does exist.
Yeah. And there's lots of, anyway, anybody else want to add something on the pivot aspect?
Yeah, just on pivots, another book recommendation. I'm just going to keep doing this. Working Identity, Herminia Ibarra, profiles folks who are making pretty serious career pivots, how they actually went about doing it. The big takeaway from her research: this takes a lot longer than we think it will. This requires a lot more thought and experimentation than maybe we would like. And anyway, go read the book or find her TED Talk. It's an incredible resource. Working Identity. Also, my LinkedIn post that Caroline referenced on this is called "Transferable Skills Don't Exist." Now, again, this is sort of written as a hot take to get people to click on it on LinkedIn, but the thrust of this is that often when people are trying to make a pivot, one of the key issues I see over and over again is, number one, transferable skills is a really weak frame for the recruiter and the hiring manager. I don't want someone who has transferable skills that might work. I want someone who knows exactly what I need them to do in this job. So you need to find the core of what you do, which is exactly the right thing in whatever industry you're going for. And likely today, you don't know what that is. You don't have enough insight into the industry you're trying to pivot into to identify those jobs, identify where you fit in. You need to fill that knowledge gap, right? So often this could mean exploring opportunities that might not be at your level. It may be down a rung or two or three. I would push a broom in a new sector if it let me get my way in the door. And again, like we talked about, there's no shame in pushing a broom, right? And so do whatever you need to do to make the pivot that you want to make. But likely there is a gap from your perspective. You don't know what you need to know today to identify where you fit in. What you need to do is fill those gaps. My favorite resource on this is the Forks episode of the Hulu show The Bear, where we see someone make a career pivot in the culinary world, and it's a 30-minute episode. Just go watch Forks episode of The Bear. It is, I think, my favorite career resource of any kind, and I have to read this stuff for a living. It's so good. So go watch that episode and follow the advice which is shared. Thanks.
I put the blog post in there, and then I'll mention Forks. And Julia, did you want to add something on this one?
Craig, if I can I add one more thing to what Spencer said? So Spencer, I think what Spencer is saying is totally accurate, but I also want to offer this space of where can you get the experience that you're desiring without waiting for permission? Okay. And so what I mean by that is, if it's like you want to make a pivot, which is awesome. And often we come into the space of like, I just need someone to give me a chance, which is often true, right? But where could you take that into your own hands and do it anyway? And that is a lesson for the whole job search, right? Because so much of the job search is spent waiting for other people to like you back. And as someone who's never been the popular kid, I'm over it, right? And it's like, where can you be the person to take agency? And it is hard, right? But it can look simple, right? It can look like volunteering for an organization you care deeply about and figuring out how to fundraise while you're supporting, their efforts there, right? It can look like, micro moments where you're gaining skills, because at the end of the day, it's the outcome that matters. It does not matter whether or not you got paid for that fundraising experience. If you generated, if you can now say, okay, I'm capable of fundraising, X amount of dollars, that's still valuable experience, whether you did it for free or whether you had it in a paying job, right? So where are the spaces where you don't need to wait for permission?
We've got a lot. There's like songs and shows and all these ideas. So now I'm getting hungry. But anyway, go ahead, Julia.
I will sneak in actually, because Caroline, that is so aligned with something I feel really strongly about and teach about, which is project-based networking. And so it not specifically to changing sectors, but just for the job search more broadly. One, I think it's an inherently depleting, demoralizing experience for a lot of us to be in a job search. You're, like Caroline said, you're asking for something and waiting for someone to like you back. And so you can be in a disempowering position. And I would say, think about the things that fill your cup, so you might think about, am I introverted, extroverted? And then what is some sort of project that might contribute to the fields that I'm passionate about that I could go out and do myself? So I've worked with clients who wanted to get into diversity, equity, inclusion work, who started a podcast about DEI work. This was a few years ago before it was so politically, well, we can go, that's a whole other rabbit hole. But this client did manage to make a pivot to focus a lot more on that space. And built a lot of really meaningful relationships, getting New York Times bestselling authors on the podcast. And, and I've worked with other clients who were like, I'm super introverted. Do not put me in a networking event. I don't want to be in front of a room, but I love research. And so worked on a research paper where she ended up speaking to something like 200 people about their experiences as kind of mid-career professionals in the sandwich generation with parents that were aging and kids at home, and ended up growing so many new relationships while doing a job search. And it felt really meaningful in terms of building up her profile, but also sustained her and felt really energizing and exciting as she was shifting into another field. So yeah, I'll leave it there. But project-based networking is a really great way to think about your approach.
Anybody want to add something?
Yeah, Craig, just one more thing here, because I got to find an organic way to plug the talk I'm doing tomorrow in DC. Hunt like a hero, apply like a scientist. And if you're in the DC area, I hope you'll show up. Talks in the morning and the afternoon. You can register on Eventbrite. Now Dan will be happy that I've managed to plug our thing, but please come out if you're free. The thing I wanted to say is that, echoing everything Julia said about project-based networking, finding you can generate leads, you can bring stuff in, and echoing everything Caroline said about not waiting for permission. You can hustle your way into the thing that you want to do. This is certainly my path with this business. No one gave me this job. I sort of created it whole cloth through grit and a good amount of luck and the help and assistance from the other people on this call, frankly, the other presenters. And I thank my lucky stars every day that I have the chance to do this work. What I wanted to say is that as you are applying for things, as you're looking for opportunities, as you're trying to make this pivot, what you're getting back is it is in a sense people liking you. It is this thing which feels kind of like dating, kind of very personal. But in another sense, it's completely impersonal. When I was rejecting people as a recruiter, I was not thinking about, after an interview, it wasn't about what I thought about that person personally. It was, are they a match for this job? Could they do this? Are they going to succeed in this job and be happy here? It was just data, right? The stuff that you get back on your job hunt, it is not a personal thing. And no one is evaluating you as a human being, as a person. They are trying to fulfill a business objective to make their boss happy, to meet their KPIs. And so I would ask you to treat that data as data, apply like a scientist. The leads that come back that are, who wants to network with you? Who wants to return your calls? Who calls you back for an interview? What do those things have in common? That's data that you can learn from and use to refine your search. It's not a commentary on who you are as a person. It's not a personal thing. It's just data. And if you can interpret it as data, you're going to have a much easier time with your pivot or your job hunt in general. All right, that's all for me. Thanks.
And just to add one thing, and again, we have about 90 people. Feel free to add your questions and comments. Just one point to Spencer. I don't have the scientific data for this, but when I work with people and students and alum, I want to see them track their job search. I want to look at the quality of applications, and are they framing their materials the right way? Are they, compelling cover letters if required? Is there a match? At least 80%, But I want to see, like, if they have good materials, if they've applied to 10 jobs and they come back, doesn't really bother me. But if they get to like 20 or 30 and they're applying the right place and they haven't gotten a 5 to 10 to 15% interview rate, that's a sign of, like, thinking about a scientist. It's not a volume game. It's, it all depends. Like, if you're super senior and have very specific skills, you should be getting a 30, 40% interview rate. If you're just a junior person, not that you're not special, but among 500 other people, then you'll have a lower rate. So it's also tracking where you apply and making sure your applications are really strong and getting the support you need. So the next question is, if for people based in the global majority, what are some of the suggestions we might have for them? Because this crisis, I live in Colombia and Latin America, this devastation is affecting the whole world. I mean, obviously millions of people who rely on development humanitarian assistance are going to be severely impacted, and hundreds of thousands of people in terms of employment. So I'd say three things. The first thing, is just like everything we've been talking about, is look at your finances and resources, understand the job market in your geographic area and sector. There are still remote jobs. So the good news is there still are a lot of clients who've gotten remote jobs. The number is less than during the pandemic. So the number one thing, if you've hit like a mid to senior level in your country or region, that's often when you can pivot to something remote or maybe even get a visa sponsored. It's very difficult. So the idea is like, whether if you're based in Nairobi or in Bogota or New Delhi, like look locally, but expand regionally, both in terms of sectors and types of employers. So if you've been in development, look at startups and foundations. And then spend some time looking at remote jobs. We curate a lot at PCDN, Nick Martin Impact Job Board, Ripple Works. There's places where they curate. AngelList has a great job board. Well-Found is more for engineering, but like find the job boards that fit your sector. And LinkedIn has a good amount, but it's not the place for remote jobs. Like you've got, and the other thing is like get off the main job boards, Slack channels, Facebook groups, 80,000 hours. So make sure you're brought in geographically and sectorally, but don't assume you're going to get a remote job, because there is less than there used to be. Talent universal opportunity isn't. It should be. It's just the global system is not set up that way. And some employers will still sponsor visas, particularly, some multilaterals, or particularly if you're a person with a very specific skill set, whether it's data science, AI, coding, like you've hit something. Some startups will sponsor, some foundations, but don't ever assume they will. So I'll just give one quick example. So like, if it says this job is restricted to people in the UK and you're not in the UK, don't waste their time unless they say those. But the other thing is like leverage your networks. Because I have a client, I won't go into a lot of details. I was like, there's no way this organization will ever sponsor a visa, but I knew somebody. So I asked and said, yeah, we'll sponsor a visa. So like, if you know somebody who knows somebody, often like, who knows someone on the board of the recruiter, that's, and if you're junior, they're generally not going to sponsor, but like use your networks, but respectfully. So who else would like to jump in on this one? Julie mentioned welcome to the jungle. Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I have about half of my clients are based in Africa, and so that's where I spent the majority of my career. I do think a lot of the job hunt advice tracks that in terms of what we shared for a U.S. audience. I would say that there's this really interesting piece of research I saw the other day that was done in South Africa, looking at folks who didn't have a college degree. They were mostly high school leavers, and the study was about what would be the impact of these folks setting up LinkedIn profiles. Would it have any difference on their job hunt? And interestingly enough, that it had a pretty profound and statistically significant impact on their job hunt. Even for someone with no, scarce skill to speak of, the focus on thinking about my network, on proactively connecting with people around me who could be useful for me in a career context, on thinking about who do I know who might be a resource person for me for my career. So they looked at the number of jobs these people applied to on LinkedIn, and on average, it was like half a job, right? They weren't going on and clicking easy apply with 500 things. That wasn't what was good about setting up a LinkedIn profile. The thing that made a difference was mapping your social network, the real one, like the network of people, the relationships that you have that are useful for your career. And whether you're in Nairobi, Cape Town, Bogota, or New York City, that's a really useful thing for you to do. We are all in networks with other people. And from the talent agency, looking at our data on how people get hired, from talking to hundreds of job seekers, from reading everything I can on this, networking is what gets you hired. This is true everywhere. Like people hire people. We're just like chimps or bonobos. We're social creatures. We do things through our social networks. And so talking to people who you know, who are in your sector, in your niche, that is the most useful thing you can do on any job hunt. And almost to a person, job seekers I meet do not do this enough. They rewrite their resume, they scroll around on job boards. This stuff is easier to do. It's not scary, it's not vulnerable, and for the most part, it's a waste of time. What you need to be doing is talking to people in your network about what you do, about what you're looking for, getting their advice, getting their feedback. And as those opportunities that fit you become aware to your network, it's like it is a social brain, and you're not trying to cut in line, you're trying to use your network to bring those leads to your awareness. The right jobs find their way to you if you let the network know that you are available and ready for those leads. So my advice to global majority folks would be tap into your networks. Thanks.
Thanks. Go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah. So Spencer, you said networking, which is like my wake word here. I love talking about networking because most people hate networking. And wherever you are in the world, networking is crucial, like Spencer mentioned. But I want to add one dimension to this, which is going back to something I said earlier, which is the worst way to network is to say, I'm available, right? Like just hire, I'll do anything, right? That does not help people help you. And it's really hard to latch onto, right? So I have done workshops on all of these different topics because it's something that I care really deeply about. This one is also on my website. So I've got make networking less awkward. And then I've also got one on networking 2.0, which is a regenerative networking approach, right? So how do we make it more powerful for everyone and not just extractive? Because I love what Spencer said. What I would add to that is this dimension of it's not a chess game, right? We have no idea which connections are going to lead on to really powerful opportunities, and opportunities come in ways that we can and cannot expect. And so if we've got to let go of the expectations around how it's going to work and instead focus on what it is that we're trying to attract. And that's, again, where being really specific about what it is that you're interested in, counterintuitively, that specificity is going to enable people to help you, right? Because then they're going to be like, oh, you said this term, this made me think of you. And then it might not be the right opportunity, but it'll help, it'll have a snowball effect. But you just have no idea, when you start a conversation with someone, where that could go. And that's where, letting go of if I talk to this person, that they're going to be able to open the door to me to that, like, that's not how it works. The first workshop, Make Networking Less Awkward, has 10 habits of highly successful networkers. And like habit number 1 is being specific. And I have a prompt for you on how to do that, right? How to talk about what you're talking about in a specific way. Julia, I know you have lots of stuff about networking. And then I think at the end of this, we could all talk about the networking events that we host to make networking more accessible to more people.
Yes. And I'm seeing in our secret chat that all of you out there can't see that Spencer's sharing his post that's a critique about networking. I think all of us would really focus on relationship building, and authentic, meaningful relationship building. I even think about it as friendships. Like, can you connect on like your favorite ice cream with someone else and really leave titles, leave all of that at the door and try to make a new friend? It has a very different energy than, so what do you do? What's your title? What's your prestige? I also wanted to jump in and say, one of the books I most recommend to folks who are trying to think about the relationship building piece is Susan McPherson's book, The Lost Art of Connecting. I'm a huge fan. She's very skilled at this work. I shared it. I referenced that to a client recently whose earlier career, and part of Susan's approach that she keeps coming back to is like, how can you be helpful? So start by being of service to someone else rather than that language you use, Caroline, is so salient, being extractive. Even as the person with less power, the job seeker, we can still be extractive. Like, we're not picking people's brains. Let's stop using that. how can you show up to a conversation and offer help and support? And it's not just saying, how can I help you? But, this client I was working with whose early career was like, well, what do I have to offer? And so we actually brainstormed together, right? Like there are tensions in workplaces right now where Gen Z folks are struggling with their millennial managers, and millennials don't know how to support Gen Z. And this person is Gen Z and was like, well, I could probably help them smooth out those relationships and share recommendations for very specific steps they could take to make that better. I could help them understand communications to speak to audiences of younger folks, especially if you're talking about political campaigns, for example. And so, talk it out with a friend, brainstorm ways that you already have skills and insights that could be meaningful for others, but lead with that in those relationships, those conversations. And I would also say, I think, Spencer, you kind of brought this up earlier. It's okay if not every conversation feels great or is a win. I have a strong no jerks policy to use. I won't curse. I usually curse when describing, but no jerks policy in my network, which comes from my friend Louisa Gockel, who has that as well. And I think following people who make you feel like you can be your whole self, make you feel valued and seen, follow them and really ask yourself the question, who do I want to help? And you probably don't feel compelled to help someone who is rude or disengaged or unpleasant to talk to. So I would share those guidelines to help us along the way. And then I'll just name, because I'm taking a lot of time here, that I think all of us have some different resources that we offer in terms of relationship building. I'll name that I run a monthly open house conversation session that's a mixture of mindfulness and connection between folks in the social impact world. It's on Zoom, so you can join from anywhere in the world, and it's always free. And the next one is on the 12th at noon.
You can see my son, sorry.
Hi. And I know Spencer has a community. Caroline has a happy hour, Kirk, every month. Craig, you have so much going on with PCDN. There are so many resources. I'll stop talking and let others jump in.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in, and we still have some time if people have questions or comments. And just to add one thing to the networking point, networking should spark joy. It doesn't always. Sometimes it's so awkward. And if you go with curiosity, humility, and not transactional. And the other thing is, if I have a conversation with Julia and I have her permission, like if there's something interesting to share, I mean, if you curate opportunity, news, and things like that, particularly on LinkedIn. So if I talk to Julia and we just had this amazing conversation, if I have her permission, I might say, oh, Julia's doing amazing work. Here's 2 interesting things. I mean, or like if you curate weekly job posts or blog posts or something, like go beyond just posting or commenting to curating, like the LinkedIn algorithm, and people will make your engagement so much better. If you're just a passive job seeker, like, maybe I'll apply, like that is 100% wrong way to use LinkedIn. So just in terms of some resources, I'll just say quickly. So PCDN, we do a million different things, but you can get on our free newsletters, AI for Impact, or the weekly newsletter. And then we have a paid cost of a cup of coffee a month, a daily career digest. We curate the best opportunities in the world. And we do lots of other things, career coaching, but that's enough. And then and Caroline and Spencer, and also we're doing free career chats at PCN. I'll put the link, but Caroline and Spencer, is there certain things you'd want to highlight? I put your video that you shared about the working workshop. But
yeah, so I run a monthly happy hour, Kirk, which was an opportunity to first start as a way to help people pronounce my name and has morphed into a really great community of folks. Our number one rule, the first rule of happy hour Kirks, is make friends first. And I'm really proud to say that a lot of people have really taken these conversations and gone far with them. I have a group career coaching program coming up. It starts on Monday, so registration closes on Saturday. It's called the Impact Career Sprint, and it's an 8-week program for folks looking for their next social impact role. And I do one-on-one coaching as well. And I would just also echo what Craig said around LinkedIn, which is that the bar to LinkedIn is low, the payoff on LinkedIn is high. And there are a lot of really amazing opportunities that can come from engaging in that platform and sharing both your perspective as well as engaging with what other people have to say. So I just want to offer that, which is that I would never expect it to be, touting all of the benefits of LinkedIn, but man, there are a lot of them. And most people don't want to be there. So when you start to interact and create community, really amazing serendipitous things can happen as a result. So just want to make a plug for LinkedIn as well. That's how I met all of these folks. And it's really changed my life since getting more involved there. So yeah, Spencer, what about you?
Yeah, of course. So I have a community program. We meet Mondays at 4 o'clock in Paris, 10 a.m. in US Eastern Time. And it's group coaching, it's guest speakers, it's community. And if you're laid off or, just going after your first career job, the pricing is super, super reasonable. It's $1 a month if you qualify for financial aid, and it's just a little bit more than that if you don't. So really, it's my favorite hour of the week. We've got a great community there, and I encourage all of you guys to come out. Daniel Hill of the Environmental Defense Fund, he'll be joining us on Monday to talk about Open Door Climate, a really cool initiative. I encourage all you guys to sign up, come out and hear Daniel's talk. I work with folks one-on-one as their agent, networking on their behalf, helping them find their next social impact job. That's my invitation only. I am fully booked, but you can find more details on my website about how to get on my calendar and talk to me more about that. And tomorrow, if you happen to be in DC, come out and hear my talk with Dan Freeling at Open GovHub. Details. I'll put an Eventbrite link here in the chat for everyone to see. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. So we're going to go about 10 more minutes, then we'll wrap up. So again, we have about 90 people. Questions, comments, feel free to put them in. Who'd like to raise the next point question? So we kind of went through most of our prepared questions. So let's have a free for all. So who would like to throw something out there?
I guess I'm really curious, and I know that the chat's been pretty quiet. I'm curious if anyone, if what we're sharing is resonating with anyone who's listening, especially with the search. And I would just offer. I mean, I think if we were to glean some themes from what we've shared about today, it's this idea of how do you reclaim agency in this process, because it is such a that's where we got to start, right? Because what's within your locus of control. We can't control all the macroeconomic forces. We can't control cruelty, but we can, but it can be super helpful to think about what we actually can have ownership over. And there are, that can look like I have agency in terms of reaching out to some people that I admire. I have agency in terms of hosting the kind of gathering I would like to go to. Right? There's lots of things that you can do for free or for just the cost of your time, which is not free or shouldn't be free, right? But I want to acknowledge that as well. So it's like, what can you actually control without, again, waiting for permission and putting the agency back in your own hands, because it can be really it can be really demoralizing, and so we need to create spaces for you to feel that, but also, to think about ways that you can get some more power.
Okay. Thanks. Go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Caroline. And I'm coming back to the title of the session, Craig, around breathing, or, the use of this word breathe. And I see everyone's like taking a breath with us. And I think it's really important as job seekers. There can be such a strong sense of urgency, and that's really valid. And I hope you feel seen and validated in our answers too. We're not, pushing that off. That is a real thing. People are struggling to pay their rent, pay their mortgages, pay for groceries right now. And I think it's so important to emphasize that you also find ways to recharge your battery throughout the process. I touched on the project-based networking, but I would also say from a mental health standpoint, finding really small, simple things you can do that replenish you along the way is not just important, but is necessary as a job seeker. And so I would encourage you to think about, when you create your routine, especially if you're full-time as a job seeker, thinking about, can I take a small walk? Can I pause and take a few deep breaths before I get into my day? Can I catch up with a friend on a phone call? But really baking some mental health and well-being into your day. There's so much on YouTube. You can find meditations and resources. But I would just really emphasize that you also prioritize taking good care of yourself along the way.
So we're going to start to wrap up. So we'll do Spencer, Caroline, Julia, then myself. Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for coming out today, everyone. I just wanted to say that one other thing I've been reading a whole lot about recently is grief and resilience. So if you faced a traumatic layoff, the same response that you feel, it's, when psychologists look at it, for a lot of folks, it's indistinguishable from the grief after, say, the death in a family or another event of that magnitude. This is serious stuff. And if you're feeling discombobulated by all this, it's a totally natural thing to feel. The other thing that's really heartening as I dive into this is that most people are exceptionally resilient. After a period of time, they find the path, they find the life raft, they find the thing they need to get where they need to go. Most folks, they recover from this. And myself, I can think back to 5 years ago. I found myself out of work, facing a global disruption in my sector, wondering if I was ever going to go back to work, and regretting the last 10 years of my career. 5 years after that, I'm happier, wealthier, and in a better place than I've ever been. And you can find that path. I think wherever you're at today, your situation is not permanent. This too will pass. So I hope that this helped you a little bit. Thank you so much for your time. That's all for me.
Okay, thanks, Caroline.
Thank you. Spencer, I really agree with what you said, and I would say, there's it is. I am a natural catastrophizer, and worrying is a skill. It's just a skill that's being maybe directed towards an outcome that's not serving you, right? So what if we take those same skills of worrying and apply them to imagining that success is inevitable, right? What would it look like to start playing with the idea that actually, what if it turns out better than you expected instead of worse, right? Where I am here in my house in Pennsylvania, I could never have imagined that I would be here, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. This was just not the trajectory I was expecting, but it's so much better than I had anticipated. I am so much happier in so many different dimensions, but it's in part because of all the things that went wrong along the way, and all of the opportunities that I ended up pivoting towards. And this idea that, it's so easy to think about how it could just be a complete disaster. And it is, it is heavy right now, but what's on the other side, right? And this idea of, what if it's better, right? But I just want to say, it's really hard to just jump right to, oh, this is what better would look like, right? It's the kind of thing that you have to allow yourself you have to allow it to marinate in your brain and start to play with this idea of better, right? And then you can start to see the glimmers, and then you can start noticing the signs that support that, right? And this idea that it's actually getting better. So what if it's better? May it be better for all of you.
Okay, thanks, Julia.
Yeah, I love that. I would land with two quick things. One, keep in mind, and this is a hard thing to do, but for your mindset, for your well-being, keep in mind that there is a team or an organization or a business partner out there who is looking for exactly you, with your experience, your skills, all of it, exactly as you are right now. There are people out there looking for you, and hold that close when you're doubting, when you're not sure. And then I also want to echo your point, Caroline. I think there's so much need to not just fight back against. We haven't been like deep in the weeds of like political activism in this call, but to continue dreaming of and building towards the future we want. We are still fundamentally people who care about making this world a fairer, more equitable, better place. And we can't lose that. We can't lose sight of that. So let's keep imagining what is the world we want to live in 10 years from now, and how can we start building towards it today, even if that path looks different from the one that we thought it would look like.
And I'll start to wrap up. So thank you, everybody, Caroline, Spencer, and Julia for co-instigating this. And there will be more of this. We're all doing it individually. We'll probably do some more group things. Thank you, everyone, for joining. This will be online. And just 3 things. One is this sucks. Acknowledge it sucks, period. Like, it's unfair, unjust, and horrible and mean. And the worst part, it's all deliberate. It's not like the US ran out of money. Yes, there's a huge deficit, but this is not about saving money. Like, if we said, hey, we're bankrupt and there's no money, that's one thing, but this is just deliberate cruelty. Decide, once you figure out how to take care of yourself, like, decide, do you want to be organizing, activism, working in politics, never do politics again? The other thing, like, even though it totally sucks and a lot of people are going to suffer, it's a little bit like COVID, which sucks. It did lead a lot of people to reevaluate priorities. So if you're fortunate to find another job, like, you might decide you don't want to work 80 hours a week, or, like, I'm saying, like, for many people, this will suck. But like, if you have some financial safety, a little support, and some curiosity, and can just go through the suck, that, again, like, a lot of people, it's going to suck. And I've been places where I don't know where I'm going to get the next job. I've applied, I get depressed. I mean, like, all of that. But like, I think there is a possibility, and I don't want to say this naively, like, there are some curious things that could result, good and bad. And I do therapy, like, if I play pickleball, do therapy, like, and like, find ways to take care of yourself. So again, this will be online immediately. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'll send out a note, so maybe with like a 1-question survey, 2-question, what you thought of this, to people on the LinkedIn. And also just like, if you have suggestions for other things we might cover or other people. And again, follow each of us on LinkedIn, follow Nick Martin, check out Way and Vota. There's lots of other people providing great resources. And thank you, all of us. Spencer's getting on a flight, so a special thank you to Spencer. Hopefully some of you will see him tomorrow.